you can teach. If I can, if others can, you can. Because you can.
And so can you!
Hello everyone, this is Dr. A. Welcome once again to Training Masters Edu Talks. On this video, our discussion will be about designing intended learning outcomes. But before I continue, please don't forget to like and subscribe my YouTube channel right now so that you get updated of the educational videos that I share in this channel. Thank you very much. Our short discussion will be about designing intended learning outcomes in the course level. As ILOs exist in 3 levels, as graduate attributes, as program outcomes, and as course outcomes, on this video we will deal only with the designing course outcomes ILOs. Well, before designing particular ILOs, it is necessary to consider these points. One is to decide what kind of knowledge is to be involved. Is it declarative knowledge or functional knowledge? When we say declarative knowledge, these are something that we declare to students, or simply these are the theories, and functional knowledge are simply the application of those theories. 2 is to select the topics to teach. But always remember, according to Biggs 2007, the greatest enemy of understanding is coverage. May I repeat this? The greatest enemy of understanding is coverage, meaning teachers should adhere to the depth of learning rather than breadth of coverage. 3 is decide the purpose for teaching the topic. Enhance the level of understanding, which means that the most important topic must be assigned at higher level of understanding than less important topics. The solo taxonomy or Bloom's taxonomy, if you heard them, they're useful tools in providing a staircase of verbs that can be used to select the ranges of understanding. Let us have some matters of lesson planning principles. 1. As you plan your lesson, it is better to think of what the student should be doing and not what you should be doing. Why is this? Well, it's because ILOs are supposed to be written in students' perspective. ILOs are what the students should be doing in the course, not what the teachers. 2. The verbs in the ILOs therefore must be enacted by the students. According to Tyler, it is what the students do that they learn, not what the teacher does. Let's have examples of ILO. So the first is, at the end of the course, the students must be able to explain the importance of instructional planning. Or you may say, by the end of the course, the learners must be able to plan a safe voyage. Given the 2 examples, what then is intended learning outcome? We can simply say that it is a brief or short statement of what the students must be able to do. In the first example, the students are expected to be able to explain the importance of instructional planning. On the second, what is expected of the students to do? To plan a safe voyage. To design appropriate ILOs, it is essential to understand its anatomy or parts. So the components are easy to remember as we will only follow the letters ABC, wherein A stands for audience, meaning the performers. So this can be the learners, students, participants, whatever you call them in your institution. Then B is for behavior. These are the verb, or simply the performance behavior, and the C stands for content. In simpler word, content is the topic. So that's ABC. Let's analyze this ILO for deeper understanding. At the end of the course, the students must be able to apply the teaching theories and principles on their teaching practice, which is the audience here, the behavior and the content. The audience here is simply the students. If you answered apply is the behavior, you're correct. And the content is teaching theories and principles.
If you notice, we have this additional phrase in their teaching practice, and that is considered as condition. So we'll understand about condition later on. The common question I would get from my teacher participants is, how would someone know, or how would they know if their ILOs are correct? Well, my answer is simple. We have this acid test that one can do to check whether ILOs are smart or ILOs are correct. So these must be smart. So to check whether your ILOs are correct, so let's have these SMART, wherein S stands for specific, M measurable, A attainable or achievable, R stands for realistic, and T time-bounded or time-scaled. When we say specific, the verb should be doable and observable. It should not be a state like understand, know, love, learn. May I add familiarize and recognize, as these verbs are big words and are general. They are not doable, not even observable, and they are not workable. So, meaning they're not smart. Measurable means testable. On the onset that you design your ILO, think with the end in mind. Are there tests that could be designed? Because if there's none, that is a big problem. If your ILO, for example, is for the students to be able to explain, then you think of an essay as a test, as the students would be explaining in the assessment task. So that ILO is measurable. Next is attainability. This is another consideration. Perhaps the questions you may ask: does the place allow the ILO to be achieved? Does the time permit as well? That is why an ILO must be time-bounded so that it would be attained. Then how realistic? Questions like, does the ILO align to the needs of the learners? Can the verb in the ILO be done? If it cannot, then choose something that's realistic. It's also important to consider here who your learners are. Let us try to analyze this example. Please determine which ILO is smart. At the end of the course, the learners must be able to, letter A, enumerate the ABCs of teaching methods. Letter B, learn the principles of high-tech and low-tech approaches in teaching. If your answer is A, then you're correct. For the second example, determine which ILO is smart. Learners must be able to compare and contrast online hybrid and face-to-face teaching modality. At the end of the course, the learners must be able to demonstrate how to create rooms and assign students in Zoom. If your answer is A and B, you are absolutely right. May I show you these verbs? I mentioned them earlier, and I want you to avoid them. Again, they're not smart for ILOs. Well, I'm not saying that they're wrong and totally be avoided, as you can use them for general objectives. But for ILO, what we need are smart verbs. In addition to the ABC I gave you earlier, let's know some more parts of ILO, but this can be omitted, or not always explicitly written: the condition and the degree. Conditions are scenarios or references where the performance are based, and the degree is simply acceptable performance or the passing grade. To what extent should the performance be like? For the verb explain, is it very good explanation or a fair explanation, poor explanation? These are some examples of degrees of performances. At the end of the course, the students must be able to apply all correctly the teaching theories on their teaching practice. In this particular example, the degree is all correctly, and the condition is on their teaching practice. That's all about the components and characteristics of ILO. We now move to the Bloom's Taxonomy. For deeper understanding, may I present to you Benjamin Bloom's Taxonomy, where I related it to SMART. Well, you may also research on solo taxonomy. So this is the structure of observed learning outcomes. This is clearly explained in outcomes-based teaching and learning. But for this video, I want to focus on Bloom's Taxonomy, where you see the ranges of the different level of understanding from remembering up to creating. And it is expected, or it's important to note that all verbs within each particular level must be SMART. And as I mentioned earlier, the most important topic must be allocated with higher level of understanding. So you may research on the different verbs appropriate for each level, like define, reflect, describe, justify, demonstrate, etc. And determine in what level of understanding or performance do these verbs belong. Are they in remembering level, understanding, applying, and so on? Let me highlight that the level of understanding in the taxonomy attains with that of time in SMART. We can actually create a significant relationship here, like the higher the level of understanding, the longer the teaching time. So the time you have for the remembering, like you teach your students to define, to identify, to remember, to memorize, requires shorter time than those verbs, like for example in the applying level, which is compute, demonstrate, that require longer time of teaching. Well, the same way, so you have to consider the assessment time. So the higher the ILO you are measuring, the longer the time allocation for the assessment in general. So the higher the level of understanding, the deeper the learning the students are supposed to achieve. And I encourage you teachers to produce graduates who cannot just remember, but who can simply create. To end my presentation, remember these important points. ILOs are to be written first, as they will determine what TLAs are to be designed and what assessment tasks to create. And the verbs in the ILOs must be activated by the students. Teachers, you are the experts. Design appropriate intended learning outcomes for the course you teach and make learning possible. Thank you so much for watching. My next video is on constructive alignment.
Ariel Reyes, contestant number 3.
Abraham Lincoln said that the sense of obligation to continue is present in all of us. A duty to strive is the duty of us all. I felt the call to that duty. Honorable panel of judges, fellow Toastmasters, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I forgot to put water in it. I cried. Not because of realizing what happened, but due to a sting of a cudgel. I was punished. I was 8 years old. My younger said one of the habits of effective people is thinking with the end in mind. And I'm happy to tell you that that was one of my habits. I had set my goals and pursued them with the end in mind of succeeding. I challenged myself, I focused, and rise above my limitations. 10 questions the minimum before retiring to bed. And he is blessed with a pretty daughter who's in early months has surprisingly manifested some signs of becoming a Toastmaster too. With the end in mind, to strive to excel, to rise above my limits. I got to where I am now because I believed I could make things happen. And so can you!